Hello everyone, this is part 16 of What If Naruto Was a One-of-a-Kind Genius, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. The Sandaime Hokage smiled at Kazekage as the man took his seat beside him. They were the only Kages present for the finals of this Chunin exam. Well, the professor wasn't making much complaints about the absence. This way was just fine. The important people were not the Kages but rather the potential clients and the contestants. It would have been good for both of us if you'd come here earlier, Hiruzen said to the Kazekage. There were certain things that I wanted to discuss with you. Tsunagakure was allied with Konohagakure and there were things that needed to be ironed out. He also had the intention of informing the man of Orochimaru's plans, but this wasn't a good place to do so. Still, for someone who went through many ways in order to form a strong relationship between the two villages, he would have thought that the man would be more than happy to discuss business. We will have all the time we need after the finals, the Kazekage said calmly. I must thank you though for taking care of my children. I thought cutting the distance they would have had to cover while traveling to and back from Suna would give them enough time to train. The Sandaime smiled. Although I was not able to see their training, I am sure that they had more than enough time. The Senju compound's training fields are protected by barriers, so they would have had the secrecy they needed. Ah, that would be the Uzumaki's doing, Rasa said with a smile. Baki informs me that they were away from the village. They have yet to return. It appears that way, Sarutobi said. I'm not even sure myself where they went. You know Naruto, he doesn't like indulging everything and is quite capable. The Kazekage laughed for a second. Yes, he is indeed quite capable for someone his age. I was honestly surprised when I learned of the things he could do. You have raised quite the shinobi with him. I am just glad that he is engaged to my daughter. We can talk about that later, the Sandaime Hokage said as he stood up from his seat. He raised his right hand to silence the full-packed stadium. Thank you for coming everyone. I welcome you to the finals of the Chunin exam. The proctor stepped up before the Sandaime could say anything further. My name is Gok, and I will be the proctor of the finals. I will state some rules before we begin. There will be a count of 5 and if the contestant isn't in the stadium by the count of 5, she will be disqualified. The match will be over when a contestant is unable to continue or when she waves the white flag. I reserve the right to call off a match and declare a winner if I believe the contestant can longer continue. I will not repeat the rules as I believe they are simple enough for everyone to understand them. There will be no special treatment for anyone late. First match, Hyuga Hinata vs Hyuga Neji. With Mikoto. Miko-chan, Kushina said to the Uchiha as she made herself comfortable beside the woman. Thanks for saving my seat, she said. I figured you'd want to watch with your friend by your side, Mikoto said responded with a smile. It didn't feel as if it had been a month since she last saw the Uzumaki. Really time had moved so quickly. With her precious son away, she thought things would have been slow as the desire to see her loved ones return grew by the day, but it had just flown by. Perhaps it because she had been buried deep in her work as clan head and trying to tie some loose ends with other clans. Naturally, Kushina said taking her eyes into the center of the stadium as she saw Neji take his turn. She glanced at her friend for a moment as she asked, "Things okay in my absence?" Mikoto nodded. "Yes," she said. "Just missed you and Naruto. Speaking of which, where is he? The match is about to begin and if he is late, Hinata will be disqualified from her match. I doubt he trained her just so she could be disqualified." Kushina wasn't worried about that. She had just been with Naruto and Hinata just a few minutes ago. They'd only returned to the village. She'd wanted to return earlier but Naruto had said he wanted to get some things done in preparation for his match against Lee. Might be planning for a dramatic entrance, Kushina said with a smile. Mikoto smiled at hearing that. She was slightly amused, but not surprised. Naruto wasn't the one for dramatics. He wouldn't put on a show, especially for people such as these. It was not secret to her that Naruto held no love for Konoha's people. Putting on a show for them wasn't something he'd do, unless there was a motive behind. She really liked how the blonde worked his mind. It was admirable. I just want to see his match. He is going to go against a very tough opponent, Mikoto said. Honestly, she was a lot eager to see Naruto fight than seeing her own son do battle against a Jinchuriki. Was she bad mother for that? Back at center stage, Neji confidently strolled on the ground, his eyes darting around for a sign of Hinata. He could not see her anywhere, and he had been tempted to use his Byakugan to find her. He wasn't nervous about fighting her, not by any chance. The thought of using the Byakugan was because he thought that she might be hiding from him. She was a spineless and sheltered little girl after all. She was a failure and everyone in the Hyuga clan knew that. It wouldn't surprise him even if she doesn't show up. He would still be disappointed though. He wanted to show everyone that just because he was in the branch family, didn't mean that he was a loser. The proctor looked up for a moment. We will beg. The man was cut off when a powerful tornado blitzed into the stadium. The tornado crashed at the center in a loud boom that caused debris to pick up, but it did not fold. It continued spinning powerfully for a few moments. It had happened so quickly that the crowd had been put on alert by the arrival. The shinobi who had been ready for war, had nearly jumped out of their hiding place with their weapons raised. But the swirling winds suddenly burst, dispersing, revealing a very Hyuga Hinata with her right knee on her ground, and Naruto standing just beside her with his right hand on her right shoulder. The blonde disappeared a second later. Neji narrowed his eyes at his cousin. He had to quite honestly admit that he was very shocked by her appearance. He hadn't thought that his timid cousin would actually have the spine to actually be okay with an entrance like this. As Hinata stood up, the proctor spoke. Are both contestants ready? There were stiff nods from both Hyugas. Begin. Neji didn't get into a stance, he took the chance to speak. He didn't care that people could hear him. Nothing would really change. He was fated for misery. I thought you were simply hiding unable to face me, Neji said a bit arrogantly. Hinata tilted her head to the side. She wasn't smiling, but her expression wasn't completely blank. Why would I hide, Neji-Nisan? The former Hyuga heiress asked in a quiet tone. Neji couldn't really spot the difference between the Hinata he knew and the Hinata he was seeing in front of him. Why? You're a failure, and you cannot defeat me, Hinata-sama. You cannot defeat me. A failure like you should have just stayed in bed. You're not even fit to be a shinobi. A failure, huh? Hinata put on a really sad smile. I am a failure. My own father considered me a failure and told me that he expected nothing of me even though I made it to the finals. I am a weak coward who lost the status of clan heiress to my younger sister simply because I could not strike her down, but what of it? Neji was slightly surprised by Hinata's calm response. What of it? He scoffed. What? Because your father discarded you, you want to prove yourself against me. Don't be a fool, Hinata-sama, he paused. Oh, wait, you are a fool. You cannot defeat me. That is your fate. You're nothing but a spoiled little princess and I will show you just how much of a failure you are. I have nothing to prove to my father, Hinata said in a firm tone that surprised many in the stadium. I am indeed a failure, a coward yes. But you're mistaken, Neji, I am not a spoiled child. There is no difference between you and me. There is a difference, Neji shouted, momentarily losing his calm. You don't have to walk around cursed by Seal. You're born into the main family, you have everything given to you and don't have this fate hanging over your forehead. Hinata's said smile deepened as she shook her head. Do you know something, Neji? My own father has threatened to put the caged bird seal on me, regardless of my birth. You're not the only one with burdens. I know someone with a heavy burden, far greater than yours. At least you didn't have to walk around this village with people cursing your very existence because you carry something. Hinata took a stance, but did not activate her Byakugan. A second later, she darted towards Neji. She didn't attack him head-on, instead, she jumped up into the air, flipping and face downwards. Byakugan, the dojutsu activated as her body began to twist around in midair. She charged down towards Neji like a bullet, rushing through in tremendous speed. There was a loud boom when she crashed into the ground. Neji did just enough to jump away from the human bullet. The moment he landed on the ground, Hinata was already on the attack once again. Her right hand was glowing with chakra and she aimed a strike towards his forehead. Neji leaned back slightly to avoid the blow. As he did, Hinata raised her right foot and attempted a high kick aimed towards Neji's left shoulder. The Hyuga blocked her kick with the palm of his right hand, which was glowing with chakra. He then grabbed her leg around the ankle. Hinata sent her free foot towards Neji's head, but the kick was caught once again. Before Hinata could strike Neji with the palm of her right hand, her cousin acted faster and brutally slammed her into the ground. The Hyuga prodigy then jumped slightly before aiming a strike straight towards Hinata's chest. While still lying on the ground, Hinata held out the palm of her right hand, glowing with chakra. Neji's strike was blocked by the palm of her hand, but there was an explosion of chakra when the two hands collided. Hinata was slightly buried into the ground, as Neji flashed away from her. The crowd roared as Hinata stood up and took a stance. Neji merely glared at her heatedly. She was putting on a fight, far better than he had expected her. He could not allow her to perform like this. Answer, Neji dashed towards Hinata. Upon reaching her, the Hyuga prodigy aimed a high left-footed kick towards Hinata. His foot was glowing with chakra as he sought to strengthen the kick. Hinata leaned back as he had predicted, and Neji reacted in faster speed as he brought his right foot into the ground, and aimed a powerful strike into Hinata's chest. Hinata managed to put her left hand as a last-ditch cover, but the attack was still able to send her crashing into the walls of the arena. She crashed into the wall with her back, but was quick to peel herself off it as Neji was upon her again. The prodigy reached her quickly, and began his attacks. You're within my field. 8 trigrams 64 palms. As the Hyuga released his strikes, he was baffled as Hinata blocked each strike. None of his 64 strikes hit her. Neji's shock had been clearly visible, as well as his frustrations at being unable to hit his cousin. He just could not understand how she could have blocked all strikes without allowing one to slip. No one had fought against had actually done that. More to that, Hinata was a complete failure. While Neji was in his shock, Hinata reacted quickly and waved a high kick that slammed into the Hyuga's forehead, sending him flying backwards. Neji flipped several times in midair before landing on both his feet. Does it surprise you that much? Hinata asked quietly. You say that I'm a failure, and I agreed with you. But do you know something? I have a sensei, who has been telling me that I am not a failure and has brought me to this level. Don't get full of yourself. Neji shouted. I really do care about you, Neji. This resentment that you carry towards us, it pains me. I have always wanted to be your friend and family, not just Hinata-sama, the spoiled child you see as having everything because of her birth, Hinata said as she took out a scroll and opened it. I don't want to fight in a way that will hurt you. Naruto would probably not approve, but there was a way in which the blonde had taught her that would guarantee her victory. Above everything else, she just wanted to save her cousin. Besides, it wouldn't be a good surprise if she does manage to keep some cards hidden to herself. Naruto hadn't taught her just one way of fighting. What nonsense are you talking about? Kai, Hinata said after throwing the scroll into the air. The scroll releasing a wave of water that sped towards Neji, but they did no harm, but rather just filled the entire ground. Neji narrowed his eyes suspiciously. His Byakugan could see traces of Hinata's chakra within the water. It was strange. Hyugas always fought with their taijutsu style and nothing else. What was Hinata planning? I didn't lose my status as clan heir because I was really weak. I could fight my sister, but I just could not strike her because she was my younger sister. I wanted to protect her, not hit her. But due to my own weakness, she ended up carrying the weight that I was supposed to carry. Instead of protecting her, I burdened her, Hinata said with a sad smile. I am gentle. My sensei isn't the gentlest person, actually, he can be cold-hearted at times, but do you know what? He told me that my kindness is what makes me who I am and that I should never lose it. Kakashi. Hinata shook her head. Uzumaki Naruto, he is my sensei. I can fight because of the inspiration he has given me. He gave me courage and the will to stand up. Perhaps if you speak to him one day, you will learn to understand that what you carry on your forehead isn't something you can curse your own existence about, but what he actually carries is something much more. Hinata took a stance and held out both her hands. Neji didn't say anything, but he charged towards Hinata, rushing through the water in the ring. He twisted around along with the water and then sent a strike towards Hinata's left shoulder. Hinata moved a motion with her left hand, a wall of water pulled up, creating a shield. Neji struck the wall, splashing the water, but didn't reach Hinata. The prodigy once again sent another strike towards Hinata, but the girl once again raised a shield of water. Neji attempted more strikes, but she continued to block them with the damn water. The Hyuga jumped away from the girl and glared at her. She was looking winded, but so was he. It's fitting, isn't it? Hinata suddenly spoke. The water is gentle, so is the name of our taijutsu style. The moment those words left Hinata's mouth, Neji was jumping into the air as the water was moving up to grab both his feet. He frowned when he realized that there was no escaping the water. It was all over the arena. The moment he landed down, the water quickly grabbed both his feet like some gentle chains. Hinata moved her hands as the water began to rise up around Neji. The water created a dome around the Hyuga prodigy before Hinata spoke once again. If I close this up, you will be trapped in a water bubble, and won't be able to breathe. Do wish to give up? Neji's face looked as if he had just been insulted massively. He glared hatefully at his cousin for a full minute before scoffing. I will never surrender to you. Don't think that you have won. Hinata allowed the water to move towards Neji. Kaiten! Neji suddenly shouted. The Hyuga created a large dome of chakra. The rotating chakra hit the water, sending it splashing towards the walls of the arena. When Neji stopped spinning, he was breathing a bit heavily. This has been achieved through hard work, the ultimate defense. You cannot defeat me, Hinata-sama. Hinata smiled. You're a genius all right, the Hyuga said smiling. That is something that only main family members ought to know, and yet you have mastered it on your own. If I was the clan head, I would not keep you from learning such things. Hinata looked into the sky for a moment before looking back at Neji. She raised her right hand. I wasn't expecting that, and I have run out of chakra. Neji seemed to have sensed that she was going to give up and sped towards her, but Hinata didn't do anything, she merely stared at her cousin. Upon reaching her, Neji released his kaiten, once again, but here he used it for offense. The rotation slammed into Hinata, and sent her brutally crashing into the wall. Still, Hinata got into her feet, her sad smile painted with B. Proctor, I am unable to continue. Neji cursed his cousin. She could still fight. She still had chakra to continue. The fact that she was still able to get up after receiving that blow was lost to his mind. He was raging over the fact that she was faking being worn out. Is that it? You coward, you're just going to run away. My intention was not to win, but to put up a good fight. I pushed you to your limits. You can't use kaiten anymore, you have just enough chakra for one last move, I prefer to take things step by step. I put up a good fight, perhaps next time, I will fight to win. Hinata turned away from her cousin. Neji gritted his teeth in anger. She was showing him her back even though the proctor had yet to announce a winner. Neji lunged towards Hinata, but he didn't reach her because he was stopped by the proctor, who sent him a warning look. Winner, Hyuga Neji. There was a round of applause. With Naruto. Naruto had been watching the match from above where he was with other genins and their senseis. What were you feeding her? Was the question Ino demanded after the proctor announced the winner. Nothing, Naruto said. She was just taking things seriously, as a kunoichi should. I am honestly disappointed that she did not break him. Ino narrowed her eyes dangerously. Are you suggesting that I don't? Naruto turned to face the Yamanaka girl to see if she really wanted him to respond to her question. After watching her put on a pathetic show during the prelims, Naruto hadn't been more disappointed. Why couldn't she take things seriously? She was a kunoichi and perhaps if she had been willing, she could have turned out to be of use. Ino stared back, daring the blonde to respond. That is what I am suggesting, Ino, Naruto said. He sighed. Perhaps that was my fault. I always fought your battles when you got into trouble. I should have taught you to defend yourself instead of just defending you. Protecting me was your job, Ino said with her hands folded across her chest. One that you forced me to do, Naruto grunted. Shikamaru cut in. Hinata said she didn't want to fight in a way that would hurt Neji, and you suggesting that she could have broken him means that there is more to her than she showed. Well, I think anyone would be able to tell. The kind of blow she received from taking on Neji's kaiten isn't something one would just shrug off. Aside from that, she was able to match Neji in speed and blocked all his attacks that could have proved fatal, the Nara said. Are you suggesting that she allowed Neji to hit her? Kurenai asked skeptically. There was great improvement, she saw it, but Shikamaru was suggesting that made things hard to believe. Shikamaru stared at Naruto for a few moments before shrugging. Maybe she couldn't, but what is certain is that, she did not struggle to block Neji's technique. I'm sure the experienced eyes can say she did it almost effortlessly. The Nara paused for a moment. Your turn is next. Naruto nodded. Naruto, Ino said in a quiet tone. Will you also be able to teach me? Naruto stared at the girl for a long minute. Once could explain that as his surprise even though it was not visible on his face. He wasn't only expecting Ino to actually say those words. It was something that almost made him smile, almost. I will, he said before disappearing. He appeared in front of Lee, who looked more than ready to jump on him before the proctor could even officially start the match. This was going to be one hell of a battle. It was simply because the situation that surrounded him and the fact that this was a friendly wouldn't allow him to fight as he should. Lee was a fine genin with great speed and incredible physical prowess. This was surely going to put him to the test. It was fine though. A part of him relished to be put to the test. He was never usually restrained and pushed against the wall. Both contestants ready? The proctor asked, earning a nod from Naruto and a hi from Lee. Begin. Let us have a good match, Naruto-kun, Lee said firmly. His sensei had informed him that Naruto was better than Sasuke and he had to be careful. Of course he had been surprised when Guy informed him that Naruto was better, but when he remembered that the blonde had caught his kick when he was attempting to fight Sasuke, he didn't find it hard to believe. With the senseis. Yo, Kakashi, Guy said happily at his rival. Come in time to watch me my student beat yours. The man asked with a toothy grin. Kakashi shrugged as he walked towards the man and other senseis with Sasuke strolling just behind him. The first match is already over then, the Jonin said, apparently having ignored Guy. Yes, Asuma said. Neji won. Hinata could have still continued fighting though, Kurenai pointed out. She seemed evenly matched with Neji on taijutsu and she had just pointed out that Neji didn't have much chakra left. She might have won if she didn't forfeit. I foresaw something like that happening, Kakashi said with a shake of his head. Well, it hardly matters anyway. I imagine the point wasn't for Hinata to win but to prove that she isn't as weak as people make her out to be. She must have showed guts, skill and decisiveness. If she pushed Neji to his limits, it is worth celebrating. I imagine not a single person in this arena was expecting her to win, let alone put up a good fight. If she did that, without even defeating Neji, then she won. Kakashi paused and turned to face Guy. You were saying something. Guy faltered for a moment before regaining his composure. Let us make a bet. I say Lee will win this match. Kakashi had to think for a moment. He might actually do it, the Jonin said, much to the surprise of Sasuke. Are you serious? Sasuke asked, surprised. Naruto lose to a genin. I never thought I'd see something like that happening. No, I don't think it is possible, the Uchiha corrected himself with a shake of his head. Kurenai was curious. Why? Because he is strong, the Uchiha said firmly. Naruto would beat Neji to a pulp. I haven't even come close to beating him. He was the person to train Hinata. That says much about him, he paused turning to Kakashi. What do you really mean? Look at Naruto, Kakashi said. He isn't carrying his sword. When Naruto fights seriously, he always uses his sword. It doesn't mean he doesn't have the tools to stop Lee, he has them, and if Lee is like Guy, then Naruto knows he won't be someone to just stop by saying give up. I don't understand, Guy said, blinking in confusion. It's best you don't, Kakashi said, managing to sound nonchalant about it. Back at the fight, Lee blurred of existence. Konoha Senpu. Lee was upon Naruto a matter of seconds, his right foot cleaving through the air in tremendous speed as it charged towards Naruto's forehead. The blonde raised both his hands, crossing them to form a defense. When Lee's foot crashed into his hands, Naruto was forced to slide backwards through the ground because of the strength behind Lee's kick. The taijutsu user didn't stop there, he moved closer to Naruto once again and let out another high kick, but this time with his left foot. Naruto blocked the kick by strengthening his crossed hands once again, and the kick crashed into them, but didn't break through. In a show of flexibility, Lee dropped to the ground after having his kick blocked. His right foot caught some wind as it traveled through the ground, rushing towards Naruto's feet in an attempt to sweep him off the ground. The blonde quickly jumped up, avoiding the attack. Naruto stretched out his right foot and then attempted to slam his heel on Lee's head, but the taijutsu user held out both his hands just above his head to block the attempt. He held on for the seconds it took for Naruto's left foot to touch down the ground. Before the blonde could make any move, Lee raised his right foot and attempted to slam it on his knee. Naruto quickly moved away to avoid being hit. He landed a few feet away as Lee straightened up. Naruto didn't linger around for too long. He disappeared in a small burst of speed that caused dust to pick up as he lifted off like a bullet. He flashed just above Lee, right foot swinging towards the taijutsu user's temple. The speed in which Naruto moved may have caught him by surprise, but Lee was still able to react quickly enough to put up both his hands in defense. Naruto's flying kick slammed into his hands, and to his surprise, there was a lot more power than he had anticipated. Lee was sent crashing into the wall in blinding speed. There was a loud boom when the genin crashed into the wall with his back. Naruto landed on the ground and a second later, he took off like a bullet once again. Rasengan, he charged up the jutsu as he neared Lee, who was plastered across the cracked wall he'd crashed into. Naruto attempted to slam the jutsu straight into the taijutsu user's gut. Lee blurred out of sight. The jutsu slammed into the wall. Boom. The jutsu exploded after hitting the wall. This created a hole in the wall, but there was enough dust to cover the two. Lee suddenly flashed behind Naruto and slammed a right kick into the blonde's back. There was another boom as Naruto crashed into the wall with his front. Because the wall was already having a hole on it, he was only able to create a bigger hole after crashing. When the dust died, the crowd saw Lee standing a couple of feet away from the large hole in the wall, spotting a few bruised and Naruto stepping out of the darkness within the hole. The crowd burst into a thunderous roar of appreciation. Bets were being made on who was going to come out on top in the match. I figured fighting against someone like you would be very challenging, Naruto stated as he walked out of the wall. He stood before Lee, head tilted to the side. I have never had fun fighting someone. Perhaps because it was always an enemy that I had to dispel or someone I was training. I am glad that you're enjoying this, Lee said with a toothy grin. His expression turned slightly serious. We must continue with this. There are still other matches that must still be fought. Naruto didn't offer a response. He merely rushed towards the taijutsu user. Lee rushed on towards him as well. When the two got closer, Lee fell backwards, allowing his boy to fall down as he slid down the ground. Naruto jumped into the air to avoid the feet that would have peeled him off the ground. As he landed a feet away from, Lee got up and twisted around as he lunged towards Naruto in tremendous speed. The green-clad genin sent a flying kick towards the back of Naruto's head. The blonde ducked under the kick before he spun around to face the taijutsu user. Lee reacted quicker and threw a punch towards Naruto's face. The blonde tilted his head to the side, avoiding the punch. Lee didn't stop there. His left punch drove towards Naruto in blinding speeds. Naruto blocked the punch by raising his right hand around the side of his head. He picked up his right foot from the ground and sent a mid-section kick towards Lee's waist level. The genin responded by doing the same while jumping back slightly to make some room. The two kicks clashed in midair, creating a small shockwave. The two leaned forward slightly, both driving their right punches towards each other's face. The two fists clashed between, coming to a standstill. Lee quickly spun around. He returned to face Naruto with a high kick, aimed at the blonde's temple. Naruto reacted by ducking under the kick. Lee seemed to have anticipated because he twisted his body remarkably as he leaned forward, both his hands held out. He grabbed Naruto by his shoulders with his right foot still in the air. He used the blonde as balance to propel himself into the air while Naruto was forced downwards with his face. The blonde twisted around and hit the ground with his back as Lee flew above him. The taijutsu user dragged himself downwards, aiming a brutal punch towards Naruto's chest. The blonde inhaled some air with his mouth before releasing it in the form of 4 wind bullets. The invisible projectiles hit the taijutsu user straight on the chest, sending him back above the ground. Naruto held a single-hand seal, wind style, great wind breakthrough. The blonde released powerful gusts of wind from his position, sending them straight at Lee. The taijutsu was still recovering the earlier jutsu that had hit him. The gusts of wind slammed into the genin, sending him further into the air. Naruto stayed on the ground as two clones appeared beside him. The clones suddenly blurred out of sight. They appeared above Lee and both slammed chakra-enhanced punches to the back of the green-clad genin. Lee was forced into the ground in brutal fashion. Boom! Was the sound that rocked through the stadium as Lee crashed into the ground with his face. Naruto got up from the ground and stood up. He was starting to feel the effects of this physical battle. He was learning that a physical took more out of him. He could not worry about chakra because he had yet to do anything to even leave a dent on his reserves. Naruto dispersed his clones and watched as Lee got up from the ground. Lee winced as he got up from the ground. He was slightly bleeding from his mouth. He had been hurt too badly by that last round of attacks. This was proving to be a more difficult than he had first thought. He could not win this as things were going. He looked at his sensei, who nodded. Lee took off the weights. The ground shook as they dropped the weights down. The entire stadium silenced when they realized that Lee had been carrying the damn things around him as he moved around. Naruto frowned slightly. That was a lot more weight than he had anticipated. Lee suddenly disappeared in a blur, far faster than Naruto could follow, and appeared right in front of Naruto. He drove a right punch straight into Naruto's chest before twisting around, and kicking Naruto on the face with a high kick. The blonde was sent crashing into the arena's wall. Naruto grit his teeth as he felt the pain around his body. He could not allow this to go any further than this. He peeled himself off the wall and landed down the ground. Lee flashed before him once again. Naruto burst into crows. The taijutsu user twisted around, looking around as if he could not see the blonde, but in reality Naruto was standing right in front of the genin. He summoned two swords and pumped chakra into his feet. Lee snapped out of the genjutsu as pain shot through his body. His eyes widened slightly when. Give up, Naruto said calmly. I don't want to see any more of your hidden cards. Lee swallowed slightly. Even though he was in pain and the swords were pinning him on the wall, he could not give up just like that. While he was deliberating on what to do, Naruto slammed his left palm on his chest, and muttered a few words. Several marks began to spread around the genin. Naruto stabbed the sword on his right hand on the ground and turned away from Lee. The proctor stepped up. Winner, Uzumaki-en. He never got to finish as explosions rocked through from outside the stadium. Naruto froze as he heard the explosions. Just by that, he could tell that the hidden leaf was under attack. There was danger around here, and his beloved mother was present as well. The blonde spun around with his eyes darting around. He saw several shinobis appearing from the shadows and Anbu securing the stadiums, the people around falling into a silent sleep. Naruto disappeared in a flash. He appeared just before his mother and Mikoto. He didn't say anything to them, but just grabbed them and flashed away. The destination was the safest place he could imagine, his house. When they appeared in the house, Naruto's attention wasn't at his mother but at what to do next. Was he to just hide in here and wait for the storm to disperse? That would represent the best of options, but it would have some major consequences for him. This village would not be happy to learn that its Jinchuriki had abandoned it in the time of need. But he could not leave his mother alone here. The fact that she was with Mikoto didn't seem to register inside his head. Itachi. It was Kushina's voice that snapped Naruto out of his thoughts. He looked at his mother for a moment and walked towards her. She was standing near the entrance to the kitchen. The S-rank criminal was sitting beside the table, drinking tea as if he was in peace and the village was not under attack. What was Itachi doing here in her house? Kushina wondered, with a narrowed glance. Why did Naruto and Mikoto not seem surprised to see him? It wasn't that they weren't expecting him, but he was a wanted man in the hidden leaf. Knowing Naruto, he should not be allowing the man to be near her, fearing the backlash that would come after. What are you doing here, Itachi? Naruto questioned, walking over to the Uchiha. Both Mikoto and Kushina slowly followed from behind. Itachi placed his cup on the table and responded. The village is under attack from Orochimaru. The Sandaime was certain that you'd come here and so he called me here. Given my status, I can't be seen walking around the village. To answer your question, I am here to protect our parents while you fight for Konoha. That is at least what the Sandaime wants. That sly old man, Naruto said bitterly. I am beginning to dislike his scheming, the blonde said with a frown. Naruto, Mikoto said calmly. You have to return out there. Naruto turned to face the woman and then he looked at his mother. He didn't want to. Screw what the Sandaime had in mind. Itachi couldn't force him to do anything, and if he chose not to fight, he would not. He could just go out there and secure a few things before coming back here. But that look from Mikoto. It was almost pleading, and it twisted a few things inside of him. Naruto had always thought that he could be free from such influence, but he was not. Mother. Go, Kushina said. Sasuke is still out there. You have to look out for him. She smiled sadly. A selfish part of me would rather you not risk yourself, but go, I will be waiting for you here. It will make our lives easier if you do. Naruto stared at her for a moment before nodding. I will first secure those close enough, he said before disappearing from the sight. The water is still boiling, Itachi said to Kushina. I'm sure you're looking for explanations, the Uchiha said. He was quite surprised at how calm she had been. Perhaps it was simply because she had been in the presence of Naruto. I'd always figured that Naruto was still on contact with you, Kushina said with a sigh. It was unlikely for Naruto to resent you for what happened. He doesn't care about the village and its villagers. Opinions differ and he sees things differently. With the Sand siblings, Kankuro had orders, and the orders were to inject his brother with something that would make him lose it so that the Bayu inside of him could come out, but he didn't wish to follow those orders. He wanted to protect his siblings, not see them take part in this betrayal. Perhaps they would be betraying sooner as well, but it was still much better than fighting a losing battle. We have to get out of this village, Kankuro said to his siblings in a hurried tone. The battles had already started, and it was only going to take a few seconds for Baki to come to them and issue the orders that had been assigned by the Kazekage. Sunagaku was part of the invasion that was attacking Konoha right now, and Kankuro didn't want to be part of the battle. It is about time you explain things, Kankuro, Gaara said firmly, his gaze firmly on his brother, who seemed to shrink slightly under the stare. He had always known that Kankuro was hiding something, but he never thought that it would be something this big. This was just ridiculous, but of course he had to know everything to understand the situation. As it stood, he didn't know anything. We don't have much time, Kankuro said quickly. We have to leave this village, I will explain on the way. Before either of his siblings could say anything, Baki appeared before them. Leave this village. We have been made fools of. Orochimaru was masquerading as your father, and provided the recent changes I saw in him, it is safe to say he has been for a while. You have to leave the village now. Konoha will not be merciful even though we have been betrayed ourselves. He understood that at least with the Kazekage's children they could still look to rebuild sooner. He didn't have much hope for Rasa being alive at this moment. This was why he needed to save this three. He would also have other shinobi surrender or flee from the village. That would lessen the casualties, and after which, he would be able to negotiate on Suna's behalf. Temari looked horrified. So let me get this straight. Sunagaku has betrayed Konohagakure even though the villages have been working together for the past years. What was the meaning of my proposed marriage to Naruto? We don't have time for this, but for what is worth, that is the path your father wanted. He was going to follow along with that agreement as an ally of Konoha, Baki said. Leave now. I will secure your path out from the village. You don't understand, Temari said, still horrified. Naruto will chaos for this. He told me that he would never forgive betrayal, and when it comes to his mother, reasoning seems to be thrown out of the window. We can worry about that later, Kankuro said, grabbing both his sister and brother. For now, we leave. Temari nodded hesitantly. At least make sure nothing happens to him or his mother, she said to Baki before they disappeared. Earlier with Sasuke, the young Uchiha looked around the stadium, seeing that most people had been put to sleep. Even some genins were sleeping, but the experienced shinobi was still standing. A massive genjutsu had been placed around the stadium. What was even happening around the village? He was a lot more concerned about his stopped fight. He had wanted to fight Gaara. He had been training hard for a month. It couldn't have been all just for nothing. The fact that Konoha was under attack wasn't all that of a problem for him. He was a lot more disappointed by the thought of having his fight held back because of this mess he was seeing. He knew his mother had been in the stadium, but he was not the least worried about her. The moment Naruto vanished from the stadium, he had known for sure that Naruto had taken her away from here along with his mother. The blonde held a level of affection towards his mother, and Sasuke couldn't see him leaving out his mother in the face of danger. What is going on here, Kakashi-sensei? For the first time in his life, Sasuke felt content with calling the man his sensei. He had been calling the man sensei simply out of formality, but now he meant it because the man had really been a sensei in the past month. That just made his mood turn a little sour once more. All the training for nothing. It was a damn infuriating reality that he was facing. Invasion by sound and Sunagakure, Kakashi said firmly. It was supposed to be just the sound. I don't think even the Sandaime saw this one coming. I mean, with all the agreements Suna has with us, didn't think that they would betray us. Sasuke narrowed his eyes at that information. He could not picture Naruto being happy about that. Kushina had been treating the Sand siblings as her own children, and even though Naruto didn't like it, he tolerated his mother behaving all motherly towards them. If someone he had allowed to get that close to his mother had betrayed him like this, it would surely cause the blonde to go into a rampage. Betrayal was simply blasphemy before Naruto, and he didn't forgive it. Sasuke was certain it would be punished by death, a brutal death for that matter. Then, before Sasuke could respond, Naruto appeared before them, looking all serious. The Jonin smiled seeing the blonde. The Sandaime had insisted that Naruto would join in the fighting. I have a mission for you, Naruto. No doubt from the sly tongue of the third, Naruto said in a dangerous tone that sent chills both Kakashi and Sasuke. Why does it seem like Suna is attacking this village? Where is the old man? Kakashi had never really seen Naruto angry. The blonde was really controlled, he handled his emotions like a trained NE agent. But he was seeing a dangerous person before him. His expression wasn't indifferent, but actually looking serious. Yes, it is from him, Kakashi said in a nervous tone. Suna has betrayed us. I don't know many details, but they seem to be working with Orochimaru. You are to send hundreds of clones to help evacuate the villages to safety. Sasuke, other Chunins and Genins are fighting around the academy and the hospital. Pick one and go. Naruto turned away from the Jonin and flashed away. He could understand the reasons for having his clones to the dirty work, but Naruto hated the idea that the Sandaime was controlling his movements. For the first time in his life, the blonde just wished for the old man to just die. It would be a lot easier for him to work without him. He had been preparing for the day the old man disappears, so if he disappears with this invasion, it would not be loss. He would not smile, it would sadden him, but it would be for the best. If things continued like this, he would end up seeing the Sandaime as an enemy. Naruto flashed towards the streets of the village. He could see massive snakes around the walls of the village battling with monstrous toads he assumed to be Jiraiya's summons. If Konoha had reacted this quickly, it meant Itachi had been right, they had known about this. But it had been kept from him. Still, for Sunagakure to work with Orochimaru, that detestable piece of trash. Did they know? Naruto halted as small gusts of wind started to pick around him, his eyes flashing red. Naruto calmed himself before creating 100 clones and led them to their duties. Where is Shukaku's Jinchuriki, Kyuubi? With the Sandaime Hokage, the Sandaime looked around the village from inside the barrier he was trapped within. With the measurements he took to prepare for this, he was certain that this little invasion would be squashed over soon enough. He wasn't worried about everything. Nothing had yet to go out of his plans. The old man turned to his wayward student and shook his head. I have to say, my foolish student, you have rather disappointed me. To think that you'd raise your hand against this village even after all it did for you, I think I raised you better than this. Orochimaru smiled. You did raise me better, he admitted. Well, there was nothing much left of me anyway, but I'm sorry for disappointing you, Sarutobi-sensei, the Sannin added with a smile. Ah, the old man sighed. Your arrogance will be your downfall. I assure you, my dear student, you will not leave this village in one piece. I will make sure of it, the Sandaime stated in a firm tone as he slipped out of his robes, revealing his armor. I'm guessing you tried to get Rasa to work with you, but he refused and in the end you K him. Orochimaru nodded. That is about right, the snake stated with a grin. I needed Suna's forces, and the look on your face when you realized that Sunagakure had betrayed had been something worth seeing. It is still a foolish move, Orochimaru. Do you really think that you're enough to destroy the hidden leaf? The Sandaime shouted in question. In any case, this has given me the opportunity to correct a few wrongs. Kukukukukukukuku, Orochimaru laughed. I don't think that will be happening, sensei, the snake with a grin. Kuchio's no jutsu, Edo Tensei. The Sandaime Hokage widened his eyes in realization of the cursed jutsu the Nadaime had created, but it had been sealed away for safekeeping. To think that Orochimaru had even learnt on how to use the jutsu, the old man's look twisted with anger as he stared heatedly at his former student. How low have you fallen, Orochimaru? Orochimaru shrugged. You haven't seen enough, sensei. For now, let me introduce you to the Shodai and the Nadaime Hokage. I think it is most fitting if I have them restrain you before I kill you myself and then have them destroy the hidden leaf. Meanwhile, Shikaku couldn't believe that Danzo would move so quickly after everything. There was an invasion occurring within the village and the man had dragged them into the council chambers. He would have uncharacteristically demanded what was happening if the daimyo had not been present. Still, Danzo had a load of balls in order to pull this off. It was basically a coup. They had been dragged away when the invasion started and it was as if the man had planned it all along. No, this had been premeditated. The Warhawk could not have thought things like that just after the invasion started. He had planned this. Shikaku had an idea on how things were going to play out during this meeting and it would not be good. He had a feeling that the Sandaime hadn't foreseen this one coming. Even so, things were moving too quickly. What is the meaning of this, Danzo? Sume demanded, not being mindful on the daimyo's presence. She hated being dragged out of her comfort zone and from watching her clan in this kind of time. She would be out there making sure that her children were okay rather than being cooped inside here. In case there is an emergency or when the Hokage is unable to take control of the village, Koharu, Homura, Anbu Commander, the Jonin Commander, Shikaku, and I, take control of the village. This is an emergency and the Hokage is otherwise occupied right now. Danzo was happy that he had managed to execute his plan flawlessly. Of course he didn't care if the Sandaime lived or not, but he would be happy if he ended up dying. One thing that worked on his favor was that these people do not exactly know what is happening outside these walls. They would rely on him to feed them information. If they were certain of the situation outside this building, they would have made things much more difficult, but the important thing was that they were clueless. They didn't know that Tsunagakure had been tricked by the Orochimaru, who the Kazekage and impersonated him. They didn't know anything and he held all the cards. It wouldn't matter if they realized it later after the meeting. He would have gotten his hands in the village strings, Konoha would be his and they would be powerless to do anything. Not even that sly Sarutobi would be able to act, well, if he does survive Orochimaru. Danzo thought it was unlikely. It was a joy when he had this feeling that he was in control of the situation. There is really nothing to talk about, Hiashi said. Plans were made to counter the problem, so I don't see the point of having us to temporarily take control of the village. It isn't like the Sandaime is dead anyway. We don't even know anything happening outside. What is happening outside is that Suna has betrayed us and is fighting along with Orochimaru. Sarutobi was foolish to trust the Kazekage. I am more troubled by the fact that he knew this invasion was going to happen and yet did nothing to stop it. As we speak, he is currently locked in a battle with his former student Orochimaru, who he let go years ago, Danzo said in a firm tone. It is about time we let his reign to come to an end. This is like a coup, Shikaku muttered under his breath. Say what you will, Koharu stated. But we must do what is best for Konoha and the daimyo agrees with us. Hiruzen can no longer continue as Hokage and we know that he plans to die along with Orochimaru. We want to come out of this with a Kage who will lead us. It would be disastrous if the other Kages think we have become weak. What do you propose then? Hiashi asked with narrowed eyes. The Hyuga clan head wasn't against the idea of getting a new Kage. In recent years they have been at odds with the Sandaime Hokage and everyone knew the old man was way past his prime. If he was fighting a powerful shinobi like Orochimaru, he would not come out of it in one piece, if he survives, and that meant he won't be able to lead the village. The village could not afford to appear weak. What was most unfortunate was that Tsunagakure had betrayed them, even after all the Sandaime did to strengthen the bond between the two villages. He had even been willing to marry off Minato's son to Suna just to strengthen that relationship, but because of this, that agreement would have to be torn apart. We select a new Kage, the daimyo stated. I have liked Hiruzen, but if he allowed this to happen, and I cannot simply let it slide. Konoha heavily reflects on the Fire Nation's power. I need someone strong and capable who can lead this village and continue to protect the country. It was coming to this. Shikaku was outnumbered here. They would put on names and there would be a vote. Of course the Fire Lord's vote meant the most. Shikaku really hated this position he was in. I nominate Jiraiya of the Sannin and Hitaki Kakashi. You can only nominate one person, Koharu stated. We have asked Jiraiya to fill in the position but he said no. You know that well that it wouldn't be for the first time that he has refused to become Hokage. Even his sensei could not convince him. Kakashi is still too young and still represents the same naivety that has led for this mistake to occur. Who should we place as the Godime Hokage then? The daimyo asked. The answer is obvious, Danzo stated firmly. I should become the next Hokage. I am capable of making the hard decisions that Hiruzen was unable to do. Perhaps we should first wait for invasion to end, Shikaku proposed. No. Danzo slammed his fist into the table. We can put in into a vote and the daimyo can make it official. He paused, smiling ghostly. If it eases your worry, we can make the decision just in case, but if Sarutobi is still alive, he can be given the chance to name his successor. That is his right as the Hokage after all. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.